Today's video I have been looking forward to making pretty much all year long because it is actually a collaboration with Abby from Rooted in Rest and Jessica from the Waldock Way. And this is our playlist about you might be a homeschooler if, because there are certain things that happen when you are homeschooling and you're like, surely I am not the only person in the world this has ever happened to, but this is crazy. How could this actually be happening to me right now? And so I wanted to share a few of those stories with you guys. Hello and welcome to Mile High Homeschool. If you have never watched one of my videos before, I like to make them from the perspective of a second generation homeschooler and a homemaker, and hopefully these are encouraging and educational for you on your journey, or if nothing else, they're just entertaining. So I'm just going to go through some funny stories from me being homeschooled and from me homeschooling my children, and let me know down below in the comments what are some of your favorite homeschooling stories, and if you can relate to any of these, or if you're like, no, Megan, this is purely you. This is just you and your crazy family that had this happen to them. You might be a homeschooler if on the first time you have enough snow for there to be like actual playing out in the snow, your son makes the statement, I'm so excited to build a snowman because now I'll finally have a friend. It was the funniest thing to me that he said that, because I'm like, I can't ever let any public school family hear this, because they will 100% jump on the bandwagon of like, see, he's not socialized. His only friends are snowmen. One story from my childhood, you might be a homeschooler if the UPS man decides to join in on biology class. So there was a period of time when I was in high school and my mom and I were doing biology, and she had gotten the like dissect at home kit. And so we literally had a tub of dead animals and packages of formaldehyde that we would open up and dissect. And like, it's as weird as it sounds. There wasn't like a tub with the animals all together. They were each in their individual package, but either way, it doesn't really help. We would do biology at the dining room table because that's where the best light was and it's easiest to clean up and that kind of thing. So we'd have the tray out and we're dissecting these animals and stuff like that. And at the time, I don't know what was going on, but the UPS guy came to our house pretty much every time we were dissecting an animal. And so he would come to the back door and knock on the back door, and like he could see in and see what we were doing. And he's like, oh, it's like, smells interesting in there, because like the formaldehyde has like this super strong scent. I'm like, oh yeah, we're doing biology class. He's like, oh, okay. And like the first time he was just like, oh, okay, these crazy homeschoolers. And then the second time he came and like could smell it again, because we'd have like the screen doors open and stuff to like get the smell out of the house while we're working on it. He would like peek in like, oh, and finally, like by the time we're at the point where we're like dissecting a shark, I think, he came in and like is watching us and is like, oh, what's that here? And like asking all these questions. And I was like, I don't know how many people have the UPS guy join in on biology with them. You might be a homeschooler if you're a pediatrician or your audiologist or a doctor that you see regularly, but they always kind of treat us like we're some kind of combination between a celebrity and like a circus freak. I think I'm the first homeschooler that either one of them has ever met before. And so they're just like, wow. And you do this with all your kids. And I'm like, yes, all three of them. Like, it's not like we have a huge family. I mean, I have some friends that homeschool that have 8, 10 kids, like that kind of thing. Like, we have 3 right now. I mean, we'll have 4 soon, but it's not that big of a family to me. And oh, wow. Oh my goodness. And you do it at home? Okay. And like half the time they're like impressed by it, and half the time you can tell this is an oddity to them. You might be a homeschooler if your kids really are each other's best friends. And I say that not because my children are perfect and never argue or fight or disagree or anything like that, but it is super sweet, because if I take my daughter to go run errands, or like my youngest, I take him to his hearing appointment, which usually takes like 4 hours to do a hearing test and like an hour to drive there, hour back. So we're gone for a big chunk of the day kind of a thing. Or our middle son, like if you take any one of them or combination of them away, like, and they're not leaving as a unit and we're gone for multiple hours in the day, when they get back together, it's like they've never seen each other before. They're like, oh, it's so good to see you. It's brother and sister. And they like fall all over each other and are hugging and are so excited. And I'm like, guys, you had breakfast together. Like, this isn't something that you haven't seen each other for years and years. You literally had breakfast together. You all share a room. They are just very excited when they get to see each other again. You may be a homeschooler if the proximity to the local school district or like where the local schools are does not matter to you when you're house hunting. I remember when we bought this house, we had so many neighbors and like extended family that didn't get the homeschooling thing and friends be like, oh my gosh, and that's so great because you're literally within walking distance of the local elementary school, because it's legitimately 4 houses down the road is the local elementary school. Everyone was so excited about it. All of them were all saying this, mainly because our daughter, who's the oldest, we bought this house before she was school age. So they're like, oh my gosh, this is so great. You'll be able to do this. And I'm like, actually, we're not going to use that school. You may be a homeschooler if while shopping for a house, a homeschool space is a must on your list for the realtor. I remember when we were first talking with our realtor about getting a house and that kind of thing. And I was like, I want this many bedrooms. And he was like, oh, okay. Well, how come? And I was like, well, one of them can be like an office or a bedroom. Either one is fine, you know, or really just like a formal dining room that's a separate space. And he was like, oh yeah, like, because Rick works from home. And I was like, no, because we're going to homeschool our kids and I want to have a space to keep all of our homeschool stuff. And he was like, oh, okay. So it was funny because you could tell that not every client he talked to had that in mind. You might be a homeschooler if you only go to museums, zoos, parks, that kind of thing during the weekdays and in the fall months or like fall and winter, and you avoid them like the plague during the summer and on weekends. I hate going to the zoo or to the museum or anything like that on the weekend, especially in the summertime, because it is so busy and there's so many people out of school and that kind of thing. And I'm just like, oh my God, there's no parking. We can't walk anywhere.
There's too many people on this earth. We need a new plague.
It drives me crazy. And I'm like, I am so used to just being a homeschooler and being the only one there and getting to just do whatever we want. It very much spoils you as a homeschooler because you get used to having great parking and you get used to pretty much being first in line everywhere, and then summer hits and it's a very rude awakening. You may be a homeschooler if your child plans their imaginative play based on history lessons. We were doing a day with our cousins one day and my daughter was talking about it and she was so excited, and how all the girl cousins were going to have a war with all the boy cousins and this is going to be great. We're going to do this back and forth. And she was talking with her little brother in the back seat, and I can hear them as I'm like driving out to my parents' place for this cousin day, and I can hear them talking, and she's like, do you want to have the boys be the Romans or do you want to have them be the barbarians that come and attack Rome? And they're like, well, I don't know who. And she's like, well, the Romans won it first and kind of held them back, but then the barbarians came and took over Rome. The whole day of playing with cousins was all planned around the fall of Rome, which was pretty cute. You may be a homeschooler if you always say yes to free books or more books or any books at all. Anytime anyone is getting rid of books, I pretty much always take them. And I have more books than I do shelves. We have more books than I think we will ever read in a lifetime. I know I have way more books than I have ever actually read, but there is something deep inside me that feels like I'm committing a crime if I say no to free books. You may be a homeschooler if you double up so you can have a free day the next day. I did this all the time as a kid. I would want to have a Friday off, or I would want to have extra time to work on some project, or I don't know, just something. I just liked having days off. And so I would double up my school and do double the amount of school on a Thursday so I could have Friday off. Like do all of Thursday's work, look ahead at the lesson plan, do all of Friday's work, and then Friday I had no school that day. It was glorious. Did that all the time as a kid. And you may be a homeschooler if most people can't decide if you're a saint, because the number of times, I'm sure you've had it too, where you go out and you're talking with people at the grocery store or at the park or the post office or whatever, and they find out that you homeschool. Oh, I could never do that. I'm just not patient enough for my children. Like, oh, da da da. And it's like they think that you are on some elevated pedestal as this blessed saint that somehow has a greater measure of the Spirit than they ever. And it's like, you didn't see our breakfast table this morning. Like, you did not see the argument we had about shoes and coats on before we left. You didn't. I'm not that great of a mom. Or at the same time, they just think you're completely crazy Why in the world would you ever want to do that? I can't believe I could never spend that much time with my kids. Like, oh my gosh. Like, blah. And I'm like, do you not like your kids? Like, I had kids and I raised my kids so they are enjoyable to be around. Like, I wanted to have children. I'm enjoying my children. Yes, I'm still their parent. It's not like we're like buddies or something like that. Do you genuinely not like your kid? It is very funny because I feel like there's the two extremes of you're either the greatest mom in the world or you're just a complete martyr. And I can't believe you would sacrifice your life for your children. Hopefully this video made you laugh and reminded you of some funny stories, because really with homeschooling, one thing you have to remember is that there are great moments in it and there are funny moments. And so take the time to write them down and remember them and think about them and that kind of thing, because they're great. Like, they are some really special memories that you're going to have with your kids for the rest of your life, which is really cool. So I hope this made you laugh. I hope it made you smile. Be sure to like and subscribe. Like I said, comment down below. I would love to hear some of your you might be a homeschooler if moments, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.